Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
Are you a new or experienced investor wanting to learn how to have a successful syndication business? Learn from the nation's leading syndication expert, my friend, Vinny Smile Chopra. He has created a multifamily academy where you will learn everything about deal analyzing to selecting emerging markets, managing assets, and much more. In the academy, you'll find over 500 lectures and templates to help you run a successful syndication business. Your membership also gives you access to Vinny every Wednesday through masterminding and coaching calls. Vinny came to the U.S. with only $7 and now is a CEO of 5 companies, acquiring and managing a portfolio of more than 3,500 units. He's completed 26 successful syndications ranging from 50 to 500 units and created a portfolio valued over $200 million in commercial real estate. He built the academy to teach and mentor investors like you to succeed. To learn more about the Multifamily Academy, text LEARN, L-E-A-R-N, to 474747 or call his team at 925-766-3518. This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Matt Faircloth. Thanks for being on the show, Matt.
Thank you, Whitney. It's such an honor to be here again. Good to be with you.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you on the show. I see your face all over the place in Bigger Pockets, and you're doing all kinds of great stuff in this industry and teaching a lot of people great skills that they need to know in this business.
My face is all over these days for one reason or another, so thank you.
Thank you. So Matt was on show WS25 a long time ago, it seems now, but he was a guest then, and we covered quite a bit about raising capital, and we talked a lot then about some of his really skills that he's an expert in, and we're going to talk about more of those today. But just in case you didn't catch that show, I would encourage you to go back. But also, he's the co-founder of the DeRosa Group. It's a family-owned business headquartered in Trenton, New Jersey. Started investing in real estate with his wife Liz in 2004, and also she was show number WS 233. So I would encourage you to go back and listen to her show as well. But they started with the purchase of a duplex outside of Philadelphia with a $30,000 private loan. He offered passive hands-off investments to individuals and interested in diversifying their portfolio. Offers strategic partnerships with seasoned investors that can help expand their footprint into new markets, and provides real-world educational resources to fellow real estate investors so they can take their business to the next level. And Matt, I know you've done that at so many levels. You're helping educate so many people, and thank you again for that. And I appreciate your time. I know the listeners do as well. But I'd like for us to really jump into, we're going to talk about due diligence today, and maybe some items that you've walked through and learned about due diligence on some specific properties, and then we'll move on from there.
Absolutely.
Get us started.
Yeah. We've had an interesting track record, and we got started in super small real estate, duplexes and singles, and as you had said, and then we slowly scaled into larger multi. We've even syndicated with investors small deals as well. And I find that the due diligence process changes a bit as you get into larger multi, but in some ways it also stays the same in a lot of ways. There just becomes more to look at. But in some ways you're just really looking at a lot of the same things just on a larger scale when you take on a bigger multifamily.
So that's great. So from a small multifamily to a large, what is something we should be thinking about as far as how due diligence would change, other than just the scale?
Well, let's talk about why before we even go. Let's talk about why we do due diligence as investors, right? Like the reason why I think, this is like I give a lot of Matt Faircloth definitions, right? So don't call me Daniel Webster. I'm not the definition guy. I just have my interpretations of what things mean. The reason why my interpretation of why we do due diligence is to validate. It's to validate that things are what I thought they were. So I made my offer on a property and I wrote up a contract on a property based on a certain performance that I thought the property was. During due diligence, my job is to go in and validate that the property really is what I thought it was, and that the condition really is what I think it is, and to make sure that things are not swept under the rug, maybe intentionally by the seller, but let's not even get into accusations on that. Let's just say that maybe they're just things that I was not aware of. I'll give a quick example. I'm sitting here in North Carolina right now. We own a property in Fayetteville. I'm here in Fayetteville now, or as they say here, Fayetteville. And so I'm here in Fayetteville, and we bought a property, 198 units. We were told that the property had aluminum wiring in one side of the complex. Okay, I was told that, and so during due diligence, I need to evaluate the property knowing that that aluminum wiring is there. Now, if I were to buy a property and not be told that there was aluminum wiring in one side of the complex, then I could, perhaps change the valuation. We can talk about retrading in a second here, of course. But it changes what the property is because there's aluminum wiring. I was not aware of that. There is certain insurance requirements that come along with aluminum wiring. There are certain maintenance requirements that show up around aluminum wiring. But because it was disclosed to me, then I'm not saying I can't, but I'm saying to do the right way, to do things the right way in this business, you really only can change your plan for things that weren't disclosed. And the purpose of due diligence is really to get the full picture that it is on the property. The purpose of due diligence is really not to retrade. It's not to get a better deal. Some people view it that way. But it's not to try an opportunity to haggle. It's an opportunity to make sure that what you're buying is what you thought. And that plays for big and small real estate.
Now, I like how you talked about the purpose of due diligence is not to retrade, and also, they told you about the aluminum wiring, so you're not going to go in there and say, "Oh, it's got aluminum wiring. We're not interested now."
Right, or to say, "Well, that aluminum wiring is actually going to make my insurance premium go up, and so and that's going to make my cash flow go down, and so I'm going to reevaluate the property based on that." And they very likely can say, "Listen, man, we told you that it had aluminum wiring. When you made your offer, you should have evaluated it based on the aluminum wiring that you already were told was there. So no, thank you. Will you be making an offer based on, will you be adjusting the price based on that?" And we would not accept any price adjustments. If I were the seller, no, you were told.
So you mentioned retrading. Let's just take, for instance, they didn't tell you, about the aluminum wiring. Then you went in, what would happen then?
Well, okay. What a retrade is, and it kind of gets a bad connotation because people are like, "Oh, you can never retrade" or whatever. It's just really just a revaluation and saying like, okay, under my analysis, I thought the property is worth X. Let's just say that's, $5 million. I thought the property was worth $5 million based on my evaluation. And so that is my offer to you for the property based on my business plan, based on what my investors want to see, based on what I think the market's going to do, based on all my factors and all my parameters. I'm willing to pay X for that property. Then I do due diligence and I discover that maybe utilities were higher than I thought, or maybe I'll give you another example. This property is in a floodplain. You didn't tell me that, and then during my due diligence, I discovered that it is. Now, that is something that it takes maybe 30 seconds to discover whether or not properties are in floodplains. So I would submit that you should look at that before you make an offer. But hey, let's pretend you didn't find that out till contracts. You probably would be turning yourselves in as not doing very good homework. But let's just say that's something that comes up. Then, okay, that increases my expenses because of flood insurance, or increases my expenses because of the insurance premium that shows up because of that aluminum wiring, right? Maybe that's a better example. Whatever it is, my expenses go up. My net operating income on the property goes down. We've already agreed upon a cap rate. That's what I made the offer based on for the marketplace. That I've got my cap rate in mind for the property, and so let's just say it's a 7, and so I apply that cap rate to the new NOI that the property now will perform under based on that new expense line. And that changes the price. And it's okay, well, now my new valuation of the property is this. It's really a revaluation versus a retrade. And it's saying, based on the information that just showed up, my new evaluation is X on this property. Some people view retrading as a buyer trying to squeeze the seller to get a better deal out of the seller. And
part of the negotiation almost.
But it's a negotiation, and it shouldn't be. It should be right. just a tactic that's there just to make sure that you're getting what you thought you were going to get. That's it.
I like that.
And it's too many people. And again, I've got a smaller asset that I'm selling right now in Trenton. A guy sent me an offer today, and he overinflated his expenses. His evaluation was extremely conservative. Like, I'll give you an example. In his underwriting, he showed that he was going to get a 7.5% interest rate on his mortgage. And I just said, listen, that's not what financing rates are on that size property. You can do better than that.
Right.
And so he's trying to show me, like, well, my cash on cash is going to be this. I'm like, well, it's actually not, because I'd be willing to bet you're going to get better than 7.5%. So there are games that some people like to play during due diligence by inflating the effect of things that come up.
Yeah.
That's a game. And if anybody on the other side of the deal is savvy, be that the broker or the seller, they will see through the game that you're trying to play. And on the broker side, you're in a reputation with somebody who tries to play games on sellers to get a better deal on the property. I mean, just offer what you think it's worth, and don't try and offer one thing and know that you're going to try and retrade to the number you really want to land at, because you get a bad reputation doing that.
Yeah.
And you could very easily tick the seller off, and they could just, unless they're in distress, they'll just say, nope, take it off the market, or I'm not going to sell it to you. Go to the next buyer.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about some kind of checklist? Do you all use checklists for this, due diligence process, or how did you come up with one if you do?
We do. We had one for smaller properties. We've just expanded on it for larger properties. There is due diligence that we do, which is we do financial due diligence. So let's, we do an analysis and underwrite the deal before we make the offer, of course. But then once we are under contract, we go and validate the numbers that we have. Okay, let's audit all the leases. Let's, send me 18 months, 24 months worth of financial statements on the property. Send me 24 months worth of utility bills. If you audit all those financials with you and your team are going to just compare that the seller said, okay, my monthly electric bill was $5,000. Well, you're going to audit the actual utility bills to see, and if you find the average was $7,000, okay, we have a difference in expenses. And, that's a conversation. Let's find out why that is. Let's find out why they told us $5,000, where they get that $5,000 from. And maybe it opens you up with questions first and not immediately retrading, but because maybe they can give you a better explanation. But so that's the financial evaluation.
Are those documents going to be something that's pretty available, or is that going to be per seller? Or is that going to be, or exactly what are you going to be asking for? I know you said utilities.
I mean, it depends on the seller, right? If you've got a professional broker, they will, like, I've had most brokers try and assemble a Dropbox for you, like a Google Drive or a Dropbox, that as soon as you're under contract, they just, here you go, here's your Dropbox with everything in it. That's with a seller that has their act together. If it's a professional seller that knows what that runs a tight ship, then they'll easily be able to produce all that. And if they got a professional property management company, they can just upload what they have already up into that Google Drive or Dropbox, and off you go.
Are bank statements something you normally get?
No. They're normally not willing to give it to you.
Yeah.
I've asked for it. I've asked for Schedule E's on their tax returns. Never been able to get that. We always ask for it, but the Schedule E is where the real estate income and expense gets listed on a tax return. For smaller real estate, it's something to ask for. But it's on my checklist, but we never get it because they always say, no, I'm not going to give you that. Never gotten a bank statement ever. We ask for it, they never give it. We ask for things like something called a trailing 12. And a trailing 12 is the profit and loss statement broken down by month over the last 12 months, printed out in the seller's, whatever software they use, QuickBooks, Rent Manager, Yardi, whatever, printed out in those softwares. Your rent roll, all that stuff's pretty easy to get. It's right. Some of the people always tend to choke on the last 12 months or 18 months or 24 months worth of utility bills. I don't know why, but they tend to have a problem producing that. Maybe they don't keep it, or vendor invoices, like the bill from their landscaper or whatever. Like, we like to validate that kind of stuff. So I want to see every invoice that any contractor ever sent you for work that you did at the site for the last 12 months. That's what I want to see.
Instead of just saying item line on their T12 saying, contract services this much, we want to know exactly what that went for.
No, you got to break that down,
right?
Because that contract services could be, you can't leave anything to just a verbal explanation. That's okay to do when you're making an offer, because you could say, okay, they spent 12,000 a month in contract services. Fine. I will underwrite it that way. Or maybe I'll more importantly feel like I can get it down to 8,000 based on my relationships in the market and based on my property manager. Or maybe I think that they're underdoing their contract services and I'll increase it to 20,000, whatever, right? But you want to go through their bills and see, I mean, and it also might open up to new questions. If you find out that, I don't know, 6,000 a month of those contract services went to a pest management company, why is that? You know, like due diligence sometimes generates questions. Like, why are you paying for $6,000 a month worth of roach exterminations or for bed bug exterminations? You know,
Yeah.
why is that? Why are you paying a roofer $5,000 a month? You know, like what's going on there? We had one property that they were paying a local plumber to root out the sewer line, like, you know, twice a month. They were paying this guy to do this. And it's like, well, let's talk about what's really going on there. And it turned out that the sewer lines need to be replaced, you know, but they were just band-aiding it by the guy coming out and rooting it in. And, you know, there was tree roots growing into the line, which we, through due diligence discovery, we found out what was going on. And then we had to replace the sewer line, which we were able to adjust the price to cover. But had we not audited his bills, it wouldn't have been the first hint. You know what, Whitney? Due diligence is detective work. And a lot of times, you find a clue, which is this random bill from an exterminator. And that's just a clue. Well, okay, let's ask questions about that. Let's find out why that is. And you might have to draw it out of them a little bit. But it'll if you do it due diligence properly, you'll be able to uncover really what's going on by following the clues.
Yeah, no, I love that that example too about the plumber. And if he was coming, let's say once or twice a month, every month, it would seem like just a regular expense, and you may gloss over it as opposed to it being a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
But since you asked questions, you were able to get to the bottom of a lot bigger problem.
Yeah, but just discovery, you know, and not getting emotional about it or not trying to call him a liar or whatever. Just like, hey, because they might not ever thought to replace that sewer line. Then maybe that did never come up for them. Maybe they just figured that's just what you got to do. You got to have this plumber come out, you know, twice a month and pay him $250 a visit to root out the sewer line. Maybe they thought that was normal, or just what you got to do for this apartment building. No, I'll just pay $5,000 and have the sewer line replaced one time. Thanks. You know, go ahead.
Yeah. So what about validating the leases? Let's elaborate on that process a little bit, you know, and why that's important.
Well, there's three different things that we do during due diligence. There's the financial audit, which is everything I just said. That's, you know, going through the bills and going through their expenses and all that. Then there's the tenant audit, which is a lease audit, which is on a larger complex. The property manager that's going to run it for you will likely do that for you. And so my property manager comes in with a whole army of people, and they go and read through every lease. They read through every piece of paper that has to do with that tenant, read every renewal the tenant's ever signed, every rent increase, any late notices, whatever. And they audit those leases and spreadsheet them and compare the rent roll to the lease. Because you will find that sometimes that, hey, the rent roll says all these tenants are on year-long contract, but you read the lease, it's like, no, half these tenants are month to month, or some of these leases are expired, or half these leases say that the tenant isn't responsible for any security deposit, whatever. All kinds of fun stuff comes up when you do a lease audit. You uncover a lot of the real truths for properties. We've uncovered additional revenue we didn't know was there when we did the lease audit. We uncovered pet fees that weren't disclosed. Pet fees that weren't getting charged, like they weren't charging the tenants a pet fee that was in the lease. The lease was there, tenant signed it, owner signed it. They were just never charging it. So we started charging it because, hey, it's in your contract. Here it is right here.
Right.
Once we took ownership, we started abiding by the lease.
So would there ever be a time to retrade there? If there something like the example you just said where, half the tenants are month to month where you all said they were, on a lease or annual lease.
That is hard to monetize. Right. That is something that we have never. I'm not a big retrader. First of all, I'd kind of, most of the stuff that I buy is big value add stuff that there's tons of hair on it already that you're going to have to pluck off as you go. I don't buy nice shiny buildings that are running like a top I make them run like a top. That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's we tried to bring in a business plan to upgrade them. And so I rarely retrade because I expect things not to be running perfectly. But
what about the cost for the property management company to come in and do the financial audit for you, or the lease audit, the tenant audit? What kind of cost do you incur for that?
They can charge for that, and they can charge anywhere for the lease audit and for the physical inspection, which we haven't gotten to yet. They can charge anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000. My property manager does it for free, and I'm not saying that other people listening's property managers should be doing it for free, but the way I look at it is that if we're going to be handing you this contract and you guys are going to be getting into bed with us on this deal, it behooves them just as much as it behooves us to get their head around what it is that they just took on.
Right.
And I would not want to work with a property manager that wasn't willing to do a full inspection of the property, full audit of financials, full audit of everything. We do our own financial audit in-house, and my property manager does it too. We tend to compare notes, what we found. Sometimes we've uncovered stuff, sometimes they have. I let them do the lease audit. I'll typically send one person from my team to co-audit the leases with them and just help them out. On that 222 unit that we just bought, it took 3 people a day and a half to do a full lease audit. I mean,
wow.
Each tenant's got a stack of paper like that on them. And so this was an old school owner where nothing was digital, everything was electronic. So they were flipping through a lot of pieces of paper that day.
Wow. Okay. So
we've never, I know you asked a question. I want to make sure I reiterate. It is very hard to monetize a month-to-month lease on a retrade. It is arguable that if that tenant is paying anywhere near the market rate rent, that a month-to-month lease is not, it's immaterial whether or not it's month-to-month or year-long. I mean, you could argue that it's not as stable, but I've never, I don't think you'd be very successful retrading based on that. I think you're nitpicking on that.
Biggest things, that who's paying and who's not, right? I mean, who's there and where this money's coming from.
Sure. Well, we've had, bad stuff show up, right? So right. During the physical audit is really when the truth shows up. The lease audit, you tend to find, some money laying around that you weren't sure was there. Maybe their rent roll was a little puffed because they thought some units were occupied, but they actually weren't. But the physical inspection, where the property manager sends the team out to go through to walk every unit. And again, this should occur if it's a 2-unit property or if it's a 200-unit property. You should do a full physical inspection of every property.
Nice. All right, so we better get into the physical inspection before we run out of time.
Yeah. Well, that's the fun part, and that's the one I try and accompany, because that's where you really, really get your head around what it is that you're getting yourself into. You see how your tenants are living. You see if you've got any hoarders, any people that are hoarding stuff, because that is a real thing and that shows up in multifamily. We've seen quite a bit of it, and it can be a problem. You look for anything from leaks. You look for toilets that are just sitting there. I mean, I've seen toilets that are just running all the time, just flowing, right? Just the flapper never fully resets. The toilet just runs and runs and runs, and it's like, okay, that's great. That's an opportunity. Day of closing, I'm going to be putting in a new float assembly in that toilet, and we'll fix that. We tend to find a lot of opportunity during the physical walkthrough. You also find cautions. We found HVAC machines not working. You find a lot of units that have been abandoned that the owner wasn't aware of. That they thought the tenant was still in there and the tenant had walked, or it's called a skip, but the tenant had skipped, but unbeknownst to the owner. We found a few of those here and there. We find tenants that don't look like they're living very stably. Like I'm finding tenants like where there's nothing but suitcases and air mattresses in the property, where they're just sleeping on air mattresses and there's a couple of suitcases. It's like, okay, this tenant could be out of here in 3 minutes flat. They could vacate this property if they wanted to. So I just call that an unstable unit, and we'll keep an eye on that, because that tenant may likely disappear in the middle of the night if they wanted to. We look for, this sounds super wacky, but I'll explain it. We look for the amount of shoes in a property, the amount of, because that shoes equal people, and little kitty shoes and big people shoes too. So we look to see just Does this unit on the lease says that there's 2 adults and 1 child living here, but if I see 7 pairs of kid shoes, that means there's probably more than 1 kid living there. And if I see a mattress in the living room, that likely means that they've got their Uncle Charlie's living with them, and he's not just visiting from out of town. I look for unauthorized pets. We count how many pets and cats and dogs are in a property when we do the walkthrough, because we compare that back to the lease to see if they're paying a pet fee for that pet. So a lot of reconciliation. None of these are retrade items. I've never retraded anything that I see during the physical inspection. Yeah.
Are looking for the shoes? That's a new one. I have not heard anyone say that. That's great detective work right there.
These people are not going to be home when you walk that unit. They're not going to be able to walk in there and say to the tenant, "How many people are living here?" And they're either not going to tell you the truth or whatever. But you just go look for possessions laying around. Typically a typical tenant has like 1 to 2 pairs of shoes, and if you see 15 pairs of shoes sitting by the front door or in a closet, who do those belong to? Shoes and mattresses we look for.
What about other team members that you're going to hire to help with this inspection? What kind of specialists, are you going to hire, or is it going to be property specific, or am I going to hire an inspector, that does inspections all the time, or somebody that's specific to HVAC or roof, or tell me about that.
My bank brings out their own property inspector. They do all that. Most lenders at this size have their own property inspection that they do. And I allow them to do that. They look for different things than we do. And typically banks will look for stuff that could be life safety and that kind of stuff. Fair enough. Some towns will send out a building, like a zoning inspector, or what do they call it? Like a housing inspector when property sells, especially in New Jersey. It's very common. And where we got started, but in the Southeast, not as common, but some towns may require that. We will bring a roofer, some sort of an HVAC inspector, like an HVAC company, because HVACs are a major expense on property. My property manager will typically bring their head of maintenance, and that on their stuff. So those are the 2 professionals that I'll bring. Ask the roofer to go up and give me a couple of roof inspections, give me an analysis of the condition of the roofs. And then the HVAC guy will go and just give me a few spot checks on the condition of the heaters, because roofs and HVAC are the 2 major expenses, or can be the big surprises on big real estate like this.
Yeah, and I've heard even with like the insurance cost too, figuring out how old a roof is can be really difficult. And have you had experience with that, or trying to figure out the exact age of a roof, or has that been important so far?
It's hard to say, because the current owner tends to have amnesia when you ask them. Like, when's the last time you replaced that roof? Wow, it could have been 5 years ago, or it could have been, well, did you pull a permit when you did that roof? No. So they just tend to forget when you ask, and so we'll get a roofer up there, and they can typically give you a range of how old the roof is. But to get them to nail you down on exactly age, it's very hard to do. Really, it's about how much. It's not about how old it is. It's about how much time it's got left. And that's what I asked the roofer is, well, can you get me 10 years out of this, or do I need to replace it now? Where are we? That's how we look at it.
So are you looking in every unit? Or are you physically walking inside of every unit?
I try to. My PM does. My property manager walks every unit, and they have a checklist that they use. That's everything. What color is the refrigerator? Is there a dishwasher? What condition are the carpets? That I help them develop this spreadsheet that they use. And there's a bunch of checks that we want them to go through on the property and everything like that. It's like a little Excel spreadsheet, and their guys run around with tablets in their hands, and they're just checking these things off as they go into the units and stuff like that. Rating things as, good, fair, poor, unit condition overall and everything like that. And then we have that data. Once they're done the unit walk, I know how many appliances are in good condition, how many black appliances I have, how many white appliances I have, how many washer dryers are in the units if there are there, all kinds of stuff. How many ceiling fans are in each unit, all kinds of anything you want to know is in that spreadsheet.
Nice.
And they can just tick them off when they're in there on their tablet, and they can typically walk a unit in about 5 minutes was what it takes to walk an apartment. If
Okay.
you give a really good checklist.
And that's going to take some organization, right? I mean, to have keys to all those units, letting all the tenants know what's going on. But I wanted to ask you, before we change gears, about secret shopping apartments. Do you all do that, or anybody on your team ever just, show up acting like you're looking for a unit ahead of time, just to see the management or maybe get an inside feel of other things?
It's hard for me. It's funny, man, as I've had friends do that, and I've had people that work with me do that kind of thing. I have never done it. I've just walked in the door and told them who I am, and been like, hey, listen, me and my company are thinking about buying that building down the street. Do you mind if I have a look around? Do you mind showing me your rents and stuff like that? And you know what's funny, Whitney? They'll do it. They don't care. They're fine with that, I mean, because they're like, oh, sure, come on in. Which building are you buying? Oh, yeah, we know about that property. We used to know Jeannie over here used to work there. Let Jeannie tell you all about that property. It's funny when you're honest that I don't view I've yet to find people in the multifamily world viewing each other as cutthroat competitors on the property management side. They actually, in a lot of ways, if you tell them, like, listen, I want to go in, we're going to do value add, we're going to raise rents, we're going to do some improvements, they view you as raising all the boats. They know
Nice.
They can't lease to every tenant in the marketplace. They can't. They can only lease but so many units. But if you raise your rents $50, you're giving them a comp that they can do the same. So most PMs I have found view each other to be on the same team.
Okay.
And so I will walk in and I don't secret shop. I tell them why I'm there. I'm here to see your apartments because I want to make mine look just like yours.
Yeah. No, I like that. And so what is your buying criteria right now?
We're very market specific. We're in a few specific markets around the U.S. We're in I'm sitting here in Fayetteville, North Carolina right now. We're shopping a few very specific markets in, the Virginia Beach, Newport News, Hampton Roads area. We already own several buildings in Kentucky. We're looking to buy more there. I love it there. I love that marketplace. And we're also buying in Central Pennsylvania. That's pretty much it. I'd like to be in Charleston, South Carolina, but it's gotten somewhat competitive. So we're looking there. We just haven't been able to find anything yet.
Nice.
So markets, and then we tend to look for more workforce level housing. I don't buy B level stuff and try and bring it to an A. I buy the lower priced workforce housing stuff, and I try and give it a solid facelift to make it more stable, make it more owner proud kind of thing.
Nice. And you've done numerous syndications now. You've been in real estate a really long time. What's been the hardest part of this syndication journey for you?
Finding the right vendors. Finding the right vendors that get it, that want to stick with you long term and don't want to absolutely jack your price on the first deal and try and make all the profit from you on your first one, or they really get about playing the long game with apartment building owners, and that vendor relationship plays with property managers. We just had to fire a property manager. We hired a new one, so that plays there. That plays for everything from roofers that think that you're made of a couple $1 million because you own this apartment building, and so they're going to double their roofing price because they think that you can afford it. To everybody. So just finding the right vendors has been a struggle that we've always had on small and big stuff. The contractors and any vendor that it comes to dealing with us, finding the vendors that get it, that understand that if they give you the right price and the right customer service, you'll continue to come back over and over again.
Right. See a long-term relationship here. So what's a way that you've recently improved your business, Matt, that we could all apply to ours?
We've recently cut out a lot of the distractions that are taking us away from our core growth modules. And so I'm also doing some fix and flips. I'm also involved in a few other, and for the longest time, me and my wife, Liz, were like, well, we buy some apartment buildings and we also do some fix and flips, and we're also sell some turnkeys and. And so I find I had this epiphany. It's like, Sam Zell probably has never done a fix and flip in his entire life. Right. And so it made me realize that the only successful people I know of are ones that stayed focused. And so, again, I've been doing this for 15 years, and we've been successful in a lot of different arenas. But I think that the super successful people are ones that stayed in a lane and had the courage to say no when distractions came up, even if that distraction was lucrative, to stay in their lane nonetheless.
Great. Wow. And what's your best advice for caring for investors?
Putting the investors first. I mean, I talk about that in my book, Raising Private Capital, which I just so happen to have sitting right here.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, hey, look at you. Hey,
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great book, by the way.
Yeah, cool. I find putting investors first, putting my investors' goals and my investors' needs above my own, and taking care of them before me and before anyone else, financially and otherwise, has been how I view things, and how we've been able to maintain long-term relationships with our investors.
What's been the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Aside from my wife.
Great answer.
Aside from marrying up, I think that aside from that, and that is true, that is a fact, that I chose a phenomenal partner in life, and she's been a great cheerleader for me over the years. But it's yes, and not being willing to quit, not being willing to give up when times get a little dark, and when things get really tough, to stay in it and to continue to reinvent and try again. And that, I think that's been a major factor for our success.
Great. Wow. Before we have to go, Matt, tell the listeners how you like to give back.
We give a percentage of our income to certain not-for-profit organizations, to our church, and also to other not-for-profit organizations. So we give a bit of our business income and personal income away, and I also give they call it time, talent, and treasure, right? So I give some of my treasure away to others, to folks that need it. I volunteer a good amount of my time to everything from Bigger Pockets to just helping younger investors get started and like tonight. I'll give you an example. This is a perfect example, Whitney. I'm so glad you asked. Tonight, I'm going to a dinner that people are paying like a nice ticket to be at, and they're only paying there just so I can do a mastermind with like 12 people, and they're paying like a couple $100 to be at this table, and all the money from this event goes to wounded veterans.
Wow.
And that, so we're just going to take all the money, and it's going to go to wounded veterans, and I'm going to just mastermind with these people and try and aid each of these 12 investors in their businesses, just try and give them a little bit of something to just try and make some sort of an impact to help them a bit further along. And so I view it as a bit of giving some of my time to them and helping them boost their business and doing something that I would have hoped somebody would have done to me, and a bit of my talent in motivating and giving a little bit of my experience to these folks in exchange for them donating to help wounded U.S. veterans.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I can relate to that as being a veteran myself. Appreciate you sharing that and giving in that way. And tell the listeners how they can learn more about you and get in touch with you as well.
Absolutely. They can get a hold of me at derosagroup.com. That's DEROSA group.com. Just so happen to be wearing a DeRosa Group shirt. There it is.
Nice.
The DeRosa Group, DEROSA group.com. And they can check out projects we're up to. They can subscribe to the newsletter. And they can also pick up a copy of the book, Raising Private Capital, on that site as well. Or they can just go to Amazon or Bigger Pockets and pick it up there as well.
Great. We'll have a link in the show notes to that book as well. Matt, thank you so much for your time. We're always grateful to have you as a guest and sharing your experience and your expertise on the show. And, appreciate the listeners being with us today and every day. I hope you all are learning and growing your business from what you're learning from these experts that we're interviewing on the show. And we will talk to each of you tomorrow.
Cool. It's been an honor, Whitney. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.